about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love.
So I'm asked all the time, Detective Mains, what can I do to keep my stuff off the internet? All my personal information. Well, I don't like that stuff out there. I don't want people to know my voting preference. I don't want people to know my cell phone number. I don't want people to know my address. I'm a private person. I don't want that stuff out there for people to take advantage of me. That's why I use DataSeal, the comprehensive data removal service. It's the one that I trust and I use personally. So listen guys, there's a link in the bio and in the comment sections. Click on that link and you'll get 5% off of your subscription. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Alright, I promised you I'd get back into cold cases, and this is one I've been meaning to do. But to be honest with you, right when I was in the middle of all my research with it, and I was sitting down, I got the breaking news that Bryan Kohberger was arrested. So it put everything in the back burner. That's a perfect example how cold cases go cold. You're working on something and then something else that takes priority comes in. Whether you think it's a priority or the public thinks it's a priority, it doesn't matter. It's what your boss thinks a priority. Comes in and then this goes to the side. That's exactly what happened here. But I wanted to get back to it because it's so intriguing. I've known about this many years ago. I caught it on something and it intrigued me then, long before I had this channel. I've only had this channel really for a year. I think I signed up for YouTube back in like 2015, but I didn't start doing videos until a year ago. So I saw this, it intrigued me, but that's all it was. It was intriguing. I didn't like it. But then it came up again, and I don't remember what I was watching or reading. And I was like, well, what about that case where the cop had 2 missing people? Whoa! And I started searching, and it's weird when you do research and you don't know exactly what you're researching. Have any of you ever done that? Where you're like, I remember it, but I don't know any names. So let's try, missing persons cop. You're going through it for 20 minutes not finding anything, and then finally the right thing hits, and when you're scrolling down or you're moving your mouse pad up and down and you see a name that reminds you, you're like, that's it, that's what happened. And then I got back into this. So this is almost like a double cold case because it involves 2 missing persons, 2 missing people. Terrance Williams, who was 27-year-old black male, and the second one, I believe, was Felipe Santos. And they went missing on different dates, 6 months in between. And there is one common denominator, though. Well, there's more than one. They're both from the same area in, I believe it was Florida. Is they were last seen by the same person. And the same person happened to be a police officer, a sheriff's deputy. So let's get into, let's start with the second missing person. Hot chocolate today. You believe it? No Pete's coffee today. Hot chocolate. I don't know why. You ever do that when you just have a hankering for something? I seen hot chocolate up there and I was like, ooh, I want it. I digress. Alright. So on January 12, 2004, Terrance Williams goes missing. He was going to a party, and his friends hadn't seen him for a while. And what had happened is his mother eventually reported him missing. He had been missing for like 3 days or something, and nobody knows where he is. She starts doing some investigating, her and her family. And they start calling hospitals, jails, all these things, and they can't find him. Now, Terrance is somebody that, and we'll get into that with victimology because it's going to be very important here. but he was in trouble with the law, didn't follow the law, those type of things. And when they didn't find him in the hospital or jail, or he wasn't somebody to run away, but he was an adult, like I said, he was 27 years old, he can come and go as he wants. They finally called a tow yard, which is very smart. Okay, his car is missing as well. Tow yard is a very good place to start your investigation. And guess what? They find his car. So now it's their first lead. I love it. It's like, I don't know. I just like when citizens take action like that if they're not getting help with the police. They find the car. Hey, who was it towed by? This officer, and I wish I could have remembered his name off the top of my head, but I have so many notes here that I've written, and I don't have it. Let me think of what his name was. I know I have it written here somewhere. I don't have it written here, but it was Steve Culkin. I knew I'd get it. Still a trap up here. So Deputy Culkin is off duty. Dispatch calls his home. This is 4 days after the disappearance. This is going to be important. 4 days after Terrance Williams and his car disappears. They track down his car. It has been towed to a lot, and the person that had it towed was Deputy Steve Culkin. So they call him at home, the dispatch. Mom's blowing up the police dispatch. Hey, what's going on? Where's my son? His car was towed. Your department towed it. Where is he? You can imagine how frantic she is. So they call him at home. And everything from 911 is recorded. And then I'm not sure that's how that was set up. If that was a 911 dispatch or the actual, some police departments have their own dispatch, like the state police and stuff. So they call him at home, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry to bother you at home, Steve. Did you tow a Cadillac?" And when they towed the Cadillac, they had where it was towed from, obviously. And it was a cemetery. And they asked him, he's like, no. She's like, did you arrest anybody? Because if you towed the car, maybe you arrested. He's like, no, I haven't arrested anybody in a long time. She's like, that's what I told this lady, He's like, I'll have to check my notes and get back to you, but I don't remember towing anybody or any Cadillac. He said, I didn't tow any Cadillac. Okay, bye. So that's his side of the story, right? He didn't tow any Cadillac. This 4 days afterwards. Didn't arrest anybody. So Mom doesn't take that. You know what she does? She goes to the cemetery. And she goes up there and says, hey, talks to the workers. Hey, did anybody see anything here? This is where the car was towed from. And they're like, yeah, we saw he got pulled over by a cop. And the cop put him in the back seat of his car and drove away. We got a big problem here. We have a big problem. These workers, they may hate cops, right? It's possible. They are an unbiased party. They have nothing to do with nothing. Yet they seen it. Not only did they see it, they engaged with the police officer. Police officer said, hey, don't worry, I'll be back to tow this vehicle. Drives away with the guy. Now, Mom gets a notarized statement from these workers. Go back to the police station and said, hey, your deputy towed this car. He put my son in the back of it and drove away. We reached out to him. He says he doesn't remember. What's going on here? So there was enough there to start an internal investigation. They come to give this deputy a polygraph examination. And it's inconclusive, or he fails. Mom obviously is not only devastated, she can't trust the police, right? So she puts a letter in this newspaper asking for information. Doesn't somebody else see it? And they say, hey, we have a gentleman named Felipe Santos who went missing 6 months ago from the same area. He was involved in a minor traffic accident. Guess who showed up on the scene? The same deputy, Culkin. Culkin arrests him because he doesn't have a driver's license, just like Terrance Williams. At least, I'm not going to say arrest him, puts him in the back of his car. Guess what? Felipe Santos is never seen again. Now, victimology. Let's compare the two. Santos, Williams. Both illegal immigrants. Not illegal immigrants. One of them was. Santos was. Both didn't have driver's license. Both were on the wrong side of the law. Both are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Both had checkered past by some. Doesn't give them the right to not have their name out there as being missing. What the point of that victimology was to show you that, hey, it doesn't have to be 4 college kids. Everybody's entitled to a life. And when that's interrupted, we have a problem. Now, just because Deputy Culkin is the last person seen with these 2 missing persons, people, doesn't mean he's guilty of anything, right? Let me tell you why I got a problem with that. Number 1, he didn't call in the stop. Okay? I noticed that right away. Anytime you go out of your vehicle as a patrol officer, anytime you make a traffic stop, you call that in. Hey, county, Unit 66 here. I'm on a traffic stop at Cemetery and Greer Street, whatever it is. I'll be out on 1, license plate number, blah, 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 blah. He didn't do that. So immediately I wrote that down. He had the record of the tow sent personally to him, of the Terrance Williams vehicle. So instead of having it sent to his car, which is norm, he has it sent to him personally, as if he's trying to hide that. He denied towing that car. That's the number 1 biggest red flag there is. Remember, dispatch called him at home, and this is recorded. He can't dispute it. I heard it. 4 days. You're telling me you're that busy. You're so busy that you said, hey, I haven't arrested anybody in a long time. But yet you forgot that you towed a car, a Cadillac, from the cemetery. Just 4 days later. You're a liar. That's what you are. And there's only one reason why you would lie about something like that. Because something nefarious is afoot. He says in the internal that he motioned for the guy to pull over. So during the internal, remember, he just denied everything. I don't remember towing a car. I didn't arrest anybody. But now when he's confronted with these lies and facts, now he changes his story. Yes, and he writes this elaborate report. I do recall seeing that Cadillac and Terrance. And he said he was having problems with his car. I motioned him to pull over. You don't motion for people to pull over when you're in a patrol car. How do they, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Now, what I find completely ironic, I don't know if ironic's the right word. You could say coincidental. You could say it's a tell. Is where he said he dropped Terrance off at. So his story is, I motioned him to pull over. Something was wrong with his car. He said, hey, I'm going to be late for work. My car's not running right. And I said, I'll call a cab for you. No, I don't have money for a cab. Could you give me a ride? Number one, he didn't have a job at that point. Or he had a job, he was working at Pizza Hut, but he wasn't going to work. Number two, here's somebody that doesn't have a driver's license, been on the wrong side of the law, had been in jail, I believe. He's going to ask a cop for a ride? The deputy says, I will drive you to your place of employment, which happens to be the Circle K. And he dropped him off there. And then he proceeds to go back. He tows the vehicle, throws the keys on the ground, and then makes a phone call because Terrance had told him that, hey, all my license and registration and stuff is in the glove box. Well, when he goes back to the car, there's nothing in the glove box. So now he says, I feel that I was deceived. So I called the Circle K to ask for him, and they're like, there's nobody here by that name. Well, Internal Affairs did a smart thing. They asked him, well, where did you call him from? He says, my work phone. They pull the records. Guess what they find? There was no call to the Circle K. They asked how they got the Circle K's phone number, and he said a phone book. It wasn't listed in the phone book. Lie after lie after lie. Now why? And I already told you why. Now, what I find, again, big red flag, is let's jump over to Felipe Santos, who disappeared exactly 6 months previous to Terrance Williams. Last seen getting in the back of a patrol car of Deputy Culkin. Guess where he said he dropped him off at? That's right, the Circle K. Now, why does he say Circle K? Let's get into the mind of a criminal here, because that's what this deputy is. There's no doubt about it to me. Everything that I've seen. Why does he say he dropped Terrance Williams off at the Circle K? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it had worked previous. And by work previous, he had done that and said that about Felipe Santos. Remember, just like repeat offenders, serial offenders even, Ted Bundy, I'm not comparing this guy to Ted Bundy, who knows? Actually, no, I don't put anybody in Ted Bundy's category. But remember his ruse with the broken arm and the crutches, dropping books. Once he found that worked, he stuck with it. It was his ruse to get the girls in the car. Now, why did he keep doing it? Because it worked. The same principle can be applied to this deputy. Hey, it worked, so I'm going to use it again. And that's what he did. Now, I wrote down here a timeline because in order to listen to the deputy's story versus the evidence, you have to match them up and have a timeline. Now, one of the things that I couldn't figure out is a timestamp. A lot of these phone calls from dispatch, all of those will have timestamps on them. I would want to see that. And I searched for it and I just couldn't find it. I could find certain things that dispatch said they did, and I see certain things that the deputies say that he did, and I tried to put them into a timeline to better understand, well, what's the truth? What makes sense and what doesn't? But a lot of the things didn't have timestamps. So I wrote down here, the first thing that happened is Terrance was pulled over in the cemetery for whatever reason. Could have been a legitimate reason. And registration was out. Terrance didn't have a driver's license. Now he would know that if he knew Terrance. But the registration there, he could have made up something. Whatever it was, he was pulled over in the cemetery because that is where the car was found. That's where it was towed from, and that's what workers at the cemetery saw. Number 2, I can envision him going up to the window, talking to Terrance, and Terrance asking for his driver's license, Terrance saying he doesn't have one. That's when he gets put in the back of the patrol car. That is what the cemetery workers see. But at that point, I come with a confusion, because that is when cemetery workers say he drove away with Terrance right then and there. Left the car where it was in the cemetery. 45 minutes later, the deputy returns, supposedly without Terrance. When he returns to the cemetery, he drives the vehicle to a different location. And I got a lot of this information from, I believe it was in 2021. I mean, recently, Deputy Culkin was finally disposed in order to talk about this in a civil lawsuit. As well he should. But he drives the vehicle to a different location and throws the keys on the ground. And the reason he does this, according to the lawsuit, is to obstruct traffic. I don't know. But that's when he calls dispatch. Now, when he calls dispatch, this is on audio. And he says, he's trying to talk in a black voice. And he says, yeah, we got a homie Cadillac here. I'll be going out on it. Who knows? He might be in the cemetery. Going to be surprised when he comes back and doesn't see his car there. So at this point, he allegedly has done something already with Terrance. But I got to be honest with you and tell you, when I listened to that audio, although him trying to be funny, he didn't have the voice of somebody that just murdered somebody at all. But he calls for a tow truck. The last thing that happens, and again, these timestamps are wrong, and it just doesn't seem like this would be the last thing that happens. He runs a warrant check on Terrance Williams. And when he does that, you can hear Terrance in the background. In addition, the date of birth that he ran for Terrance wasn't his legitimate date of birth. It was a fake date of birth that Terrance often would use if he was pulled over. The only way he would know that date of birth that he ran is if Terrance was there. Okay? He's denying this. The deputy says, Terrance, I didn't have him. He wasn't there. He had already left and had already given me his name and date of birth or whatever. So whatever he's saying just doesn't add up. Now I have down here, remember that this happened on January 12th. On January 16th is when the dispatch called him and asked him about the tow. And he doesn't remember anything. He says, what is that? 4 days later. That's a lie. That's a lie. A whole month passes. February 11th is when they do the internal. That's when he says he motioned him to pull over and Terrance asked him to give him a ride, which is a complete cover-up and bullshit story. One of the things that you have to be able to do. Now, he got fired. And I don't have down here when he got fired, but he did. And it was mostly, I believe, because he was failing to talk about this or give a consent to other polygraphs or whatever it was. I watched an interview of him. I watched some of his deposition. I would have liked to seen it all. He comes off kind of smug, older guy now. He comes off believable. But you know what? Ted Bundy came off believable. Dennis Rader came off believable. I'm not saying this guy's a serial killer, but he might have at least two. And a cooling off period in between. There's nothing I hate worse than a dirty cop. And this, if he's responsible for murders, is the dirtiest type of police that you can be. You have to look into his background. To me, now they showed that he won some awards for saving somebody underneath a truck or something. Big shit. That's nothing. You know, that has nothing to do with anything. That doesn't show your character. Talk to his workers, not his bosses, his co-workers. Go back to his high school. They'll tell you whether he's racist or not. Okay? And if your investigation into him determines that he is, that's called circumstantial evidence. Okay? He doesn't come off, from what I saw, as somebody responsible. I do believe in coincidences. I've told you that before. Yet, the totality of everything. If I was just presented with him dropping two people off at two different locations, 6 months apart, and they disappeared, I would give him the benefit of the doubt and say, well, it's coincidental. But again, remember how important it is to have the totality of the evidence. So not only do we have two victims missing 6 months between, last seen by him, but they're dropped off at the same location, put in there that he completely lied about it. Having the tow records sent to him personally, not the way it's normally done, that makes me believe that he's responsible for something. Now, is it certainly cold-blooded murder? Maybe not. There was a practice of police officers, I believe in Alaska or other places, where they would take these people that they arrested, and instead of doing all the paperwork, putting them in jail, they would take them far away, take their shoes or whatever, and make them walk. And people would die. Now, could this have been done here? Maybe. That's why timestamps and records of time are very, very important. I have down here that if he was gone for 45 minutes, remember, from when he supposedly took Terrance away and then returned to tow the vehicle. That's good, because that gives you a radius to start looking. What, I would look in, it's 45 minutes coming back, so let's say 22 miles. 22 mile radius is where they're going to be if they're dead. And if he did kill them intentionally, you're going to find them in the same spots, within yards of each other. Why? Because of the Circle K. He used that because it worked. Wherever he put Felipe Santos is the same place he is going to put Terrance Williams. Why? Because it worked. This is an unbelievable, crazy case that I wish I had all the documents on. And I also wish I had all the correct timestamps on it as well, so you could really put it in order. Maybe that's something one of you guys can do. Because all those things that I listed in the cemetery and the patrol car is try to find out maybe stamps, dates, times for those, so we can put them in a chronological order to let them make sense. Because it doesn't make sense to me, because let's do the flip side, that he's innocent. And he is, right? He's never been charged with anything. And the only reason I bring up his name is because it's out there. He's had lawsuits. It's been on 48 hours, maybe not 48, but something that I watched it on. Let me tell you what doesn't make sense to me. First and foremost, if he had the intent of doing something to this kid, 27 years old, I call him a kid, why tow the vehicle? That makes no sense. Yes, you're having the tow record sent to you, but there's still record of it. Why wouldn't you not just pull him over? Hey, you don't have a license? Get in there. Take him, kill him, go on with your day. But yet, you come back, you tow the vehicle away, which creates a record of it, instead of just leaving it sit there? That makes no sense. That is the biggest thing that makes me believe he's innocent. See, when I give these analogies, these assessments, I want to give guilty, not guilty. Because there's always two sides of it. That makes me believe he's not guilty. Because it's stupid. But people make stupid decisions, right? All the time. But I can't wrap my brain around why he would have the car towed. I guess if he thought the workers saw him to begin with, that would be a reason. Yet, if he saw the workers to begin with, why would he go ahead with the plan to eliminate Terrance? It makes no sense. I just keep going back to him lying. And you can't tell me he didn't lie. You can't tell me he didn't forget. Or that he forgot. And that just, he's lying. He's absolutely lying. Alright, a couple questions that I have written down here. I'm just going to go over my notes. Because, like I said, I did this, 2 weeks ago probably. I've been meaning to get to this case since then, but I just haven't had time. So I want to refresh my memory by going over this and the notes that I wrote. That Terrance was driving an 83 Cadillac. So why does that matter? Well, two things. It leads credence to the part that maybe the deputy was telling the truth, that there was something wrong with the car. However, Terrance's mom said she drove it from the tow lot, and guess what? Not a thing wrong with it. So then on the flip side of that, you can say, well, it had some sort of violation to it because it's an older vehicle. That gave probable cause to pull it over. I remember them asking the deputy what, in the deposition, what did he think of Terrance or something like that. And he kept repeating the words, clean. He was clean. I thought he was very clean, except for his long dreadlocks. He was clean. That bothered me. That bothered me. Like that's something a predator who had nefarious things on his mind would say. I have here yelled versus approached. And I got that from his statement that he wrote. When he said he motioned for the car to pull over, he said he yelled at the car instead of approaching the car. It doesn't make sense. You don't yell at a car. The cemetery, when he got pulled over there. The statement, the police report that he wrote, that the police department made him write that. Make no mistake about it. He didn't come in and write a report like he was supposed to. But once the internal started, they said, hey, you need to write a report about this. And that was simply to cover their ass. So they didn't get sued. In that report, it was noted that the vehicle traffic stop happened at 12:15. But when I looked at the witness's statement, it said 9 a.m. Again, big discrepancy there. I also took a timestamp of 12:27 for when the vehicle was towed. If the traffic stop happened at 12:15 and he drove away for 45 minutes and came back and was towed at 12:27, that makes no sense, right? Also, if it happens at 9 o'clock a.m., he drives him away, is back by 10, 2 hours passed before he had the vehicle towed. That doesn't quite make sense either. I have down here about his call to dispatch. Very disturbing call. Yeah, we got a homey Cadillac here. I've heard that type of voice. Okay? It was old timers on the job joking with dispatch like that. I've heard that. I've heard that exact same thing. But what bothered me about that, besides the tone of that, is, and the stupid jokiness of it, is it just doesn't sound like he just killed somebody. And it doesn't make sense. If you just killed somebody, why are you towing that vehicle? Just leave it there. It's abandoned. Your name will never ever come out. Doesn't make sense to me. That's why shit like this bothers me so much. Because I try to make sense of everything. And sometimes you can't. That right there tells me he's innocent. No reason. Unless he got a kickback of some sort. And I've seen that too. Where you tow vehicles to a certain tow yard. And if you keep... We had a rotating one. Like every month it would rotate who you could send the tow to. That way there's no favoritism, nothing like that. But we had one cop who was a captain he was dirty. I have no doubt, unethical at least to the part. He would send it to one tow company. And for whatever reason, he owed him money, whatever it is. So I could see maybe that's why he would do that. That possibly, but still doesn't make sense, because if you just committed murder, you would disassociate yourself with that vehicle, right? Am I the only one thinking that? Bodies will be in the same location as Santos. Victimology I talked about. Had he given rides in the past? That is one of the questions that I would ask his co-workers and him. He will say yes, but ask the co-workers. Is that something he normally did? If you were at a traffic accident, and didn't have a ride, or you didn't have a license, would he give you a ride? Show me somebody that he took home. I want to interview him. That's one of those things I want to know. Also, when you give somebody a ride, you're supposed to call it in. Now, I'm guilty of this because when I was on patrol, I've done that. I've given somebody a ride home quick, out in the cold, whatever it was, very intoxicated. Hey, where do you live? All right. But you're supposed to call that in, especially if it's a female, and give your mileage. And that's protecting you, because if she comes back and says, yeah, he took me up in the woods there and assaulted me. Well, look at the odometer. I called it in. It was exactly from my location to her house. That's why you call it in. Did he do that? Did he normally do that? Those are questions that I'd want to know. I have down here a big one. Why tow it? And we've gone over that. Because you could just leave it and say it's abandoned. And the guy disappeared. So that doesn't make sense to me. But what also doesn't make sense is that two people that he given rides to disappear for no reason. Now the police will come out and say, Well, they both were in trouble with the law. One possibly was being deported. The other one, had owed child support in another state, so they just fled. That's bullshit. That's covering your ass. That's what. Now, sure, you can say that that's a possibility, but it's not a probability. Why not? I have a big star here. Why not cite Terrance or Felipe and arrest them? Right? Why not do that? They're both driving illegally or did something wrong that you can arrest them for. Now, for Terrance, I have a quote here from the deputy. He said, "I had no plans to arrest. I thought I was checking out a disabled vehicle." Now, that doesn't match up again. That's what he said in, I believe it was his internal, which was a month after the incident. I had no plans to arrest. I thought I was checking out a disabled vehicle. But he pulled him over. He put him in the back of his car. He ran a warrants check on him. Looking into his background should tell you whether he had plans to arrest. He could be telling the truth there, because remember what he told the dispatch? I haven't arrested anybody in a long time. That way you go back in his background and find out if that's true or not. There it is, guys. What do you think? I mean, I would want to know how many other people have gone missing in that area. Especially, let's say, adult males. If this was two females, I'd look for the females. But there, if he's guilty, if he's done something, it was with two men. What do they have in common? They're both men. They're both of different backgrounds, but one's Hispanic, one's African American. Okay? What else do they have in common? I'd want to know that. I want to research that a little more. Could it be, and I think your background might turn this up, did he have a proclivity sexually to these type of men? And is that what happened? Or I can't see, I won't see, I don't see no evidence that he just took those people and dropped them off like they said, and they just disappeared off the face of the earth. Just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And both of them being dropped off at the Circle K. And he says, well, I dropped Terrance off there because Terrance worked there. That's what he told me. And then I called there, and he wasn't there. Oh, yeah? Well, let's check your phone records. You never made that call. You're lying. If you're lying, there's got to be a reason for it. What are you covering up? Now, could it be one of those scenarios where he drove somebody that far away and made them take off their shoes and walk? Sure. Florida, the Everglades. What, you going to think somebody's going to just get eaten by an alligator? No. They're healthy young men. They could make it back. Okay, you're talking 22 miles. Yeah, that's far, but that's not unsurvivable. I think it's just more, it's something nefarious. I don't know what to say about this one. One minute I'm saying, yes, he's guilty, he's guilty, he's guilty, he did this. Another part of me is saying, wait a minute. If he did something like that, why tow the vehicle? And why say the homie Cadillac? That doesn't make any sense. But everything he did was a lie, which leads me to believe that he did something, right? You think that too, right? Listening to this. His background has got to turn up something with proclivity to young men or hatred, bigotry, racist undertones. It has to be one of the two. That's what I believe. And I believe that his background would turn out. At least then you have a motive as to why. It's not like he had a lot of time to bury bodies, right? If he was gone 45 minutes, he didn't bury a body. Now you could say, oh, he had a pre-hole, dug hole and all this, but his voice, when he's towing the vehicle, I mean, I know you can't always go off a voice. But man, making a joke, even an off-color joke like that, just after you just got done killing somebody? This is a tough one. This is a very difficult case. There's got to be more out there. I'd love to see the deposition. I did read the deposition, the lawsuit, and it gave a lot of stuff, but I want to see reports, internal reports, timestamps again for when this stuff occurred. It comes down to me that he's lying. He knows within 4 days whether you towed a Cadillac from a cemetery or not. You know that. You know it. You can't say I don't remember. Or flat out say no. That's what he said. No, I didn't tow any. It's a freaking lie. Now why? So sometimes you have to work out those lies in order to build the case. Man, sometimes I wish I was on the job. Like, and had access to all this stuff. Like, what's that show, Quantum Leap? I just could go whew, right into this police department, the guy that's in charge of this. So I could look at everything and make sense of it. Because right now, it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's nothing more I can say about this. I will just keep repeating myself, and I don't want to do that. What a case. I feel so bad for the parents. The brothers of Felipe Santos, I listened to an interview that they gave, and they're like, you know, he got in the police car and they went away. I called all the jails, and they said there was nobody here by that name, nobody brought in, just gone. Just gone. He didn't just run away. He didn't get deported. Something happened to him. And the last person he was seen with was this deputy. And then Terrance Williams, 6 months later. Same thing. Witnesses see the deputy, put him in his car, drive away. Never seen again. If it wasn't for the mom being a great detective herself, a lot of this would probably never come up. There's something there with that deputy. Something. That's it for Unsolved No More. Horrible cold case. Glad to get back into this because cold cases in depth like this gets my blood going and I get excited, get passionate again. I love the Daily Truth crime to talk, don't get me wrong, because I can talk about anything, but man, this is the bread and butter right here. Alright, that's it for today. Mains out.